It's Saturday afternoon, and I'm outside Farley's, waiting for the niece lord to show up. I rarely see his dishevelled face outside of the Tuesday window, but circumstances beyond my control mean that I will be spending the next few hours with him. You see, the Lone King has gone maverick. He has ignored all communication in advance of what I'm sure he views as a date with Mirela. I'm sure in a few hours he'll explain that his phone broke right after he extracted Mirela's contact information and only started working again during the poetry slam. He had no idea we'd end up crashing. So where does Dominic fit into all of this? Well, it's a bit like The Silence of the Lambs when they used Hannibal Lecter to catch Buffalo Bill. A surefire way to think like a lonely creep is to use a lonely creep as a consultant. I'm sure that's what the niece lord thinks he's doing with me, but we're actually following his suggestions, so he wins the consultancy creep stakes. According to the niece lord, a trip to the pub will be the order of the day for the Lone King, ahead of the poetry slam. Google informs us that there's a Liverpool match today, so Luke is probably encouraging Mirela to get a bit merry ahead of the poetry slam. We spend 40 minutes and precisely no money on the stalker equivalent of a pub crawl. No sign of them anywhere. During his research, Dominic came across an event on the LC app entitled Charades Night, and he has been pestering me to help him organise one. I suppose I'll have to repay him in lieu of a consultancy fee, although I don't really see the need for us to have a designated Charades Night. We're all playing one long game of charades in Loner Club.
People are strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when you're alone. Women seem wicked when you're unwanted. Streets are uneven when you're down. When you're strange, faces come out of the rain. When you're strange, no one remembers your name. When you're strange, when you're strange, when you're strange. Alright, yeah.
What the hell am I doing? I'm hanging out with someone I don't like to try and track down someone else, whom I also don't like. This isn't how people should spend their Saturdays. Part of me wants to abandon the whole thing, but that's exactly what the Lone King would want. No, we're going to show up to the event uninvited, scour the arena, locate the targets, confront them civilly, and, if necessary, confront them less civilly. I don't know about the niece lord, but I wouldn't feel jealous if the Lone King and Mirela were enjoying the freedom of consenting adults. The problem is, I know Luke. That's not always how he operates. That's not an accusation. It's a warranted word of caution from someone who has seen Luke tail several women before. He's capable of being nice to women if he sees it as a prelude to getting them into his bed. The problem is, if a woman is naturally nice and friendly, his only interpretation for such behaviour is that they want to take a visit to his lair. There might be some women out there who do indeed harbour such ambitions, but it might be the case that Mirela's intentions for today centre exclusively around the poetry slam. We can't give up on having a functional human as a friend. Our mission for today is to incinerate Cupid's unidirectional arrows. We decide to call off the hunt after 4 pubs. We were working on a lot of assumptions. If we go straight to the poetry slam, we'll be extremely early, but at least we'll know that they'll be there at some point. We arrive at the venue and there aren't too many people there. We approach the main door and Dominic produces his social security card in order to pry a discount. Why does a guy who works in a car wash have a social security card? He leaves his dignity at the ticket booth and enters with a whopping discount of €2.50. Okay, we're in. There's more activity than anticipated inside. Okay, scouring complete. They make it seem so easy in the films. I'm sweating and I must have collided with 3 different people. Guess what? All for nothing. Neither Mirela nor the Lone King are present. We have paid into and scoured an event of no interest whatsoever to either of us. The niece lord reckons they had a change of plans, but I'm holding out hope that it has more to do with Luke's lack of punctuality. The event is going to start soon, and we're like owls keeping an eye on every possible angle to see their arrival. All in vain. There are still quite a few people entering, even though we've now passed the start time. A somewhat elderly man enters, with his face all scrunched up as if he were expecting bingo. A hippie-looking couple enter with a child. Maybe he'll one day grow up to be a poet and write a poem about the two creeps who stared at him when he entered his first poetry slam. A woman enters and immediately makes eye contact with me. Oh shit, she's smiling, it's definitely her. Kate bloody Devereux. All I wanted to do was confront a Lone King at a poetry slam. Now I'm facing the prospect of having to talk about my time at secondary school. If I ignore her, she just might...
Finn!
Hi.
Oh my god! How many years is it since we did the leaving?
14.
What did you do after Felim's?
We have, at this point, equalled the amount of interaction we had in 5 years of secondary schooling. I'll have to choose my words carefully. I studied digital culture. Her face portrays the typical suppressed confusion that is never released out of politeness when someone attempts to unravel what exactly digital culture could be.
Cool.
Not the adjective I would have chosen. At least it's not a question word. I have no obligation to elaborate and let her know that I studied it for 6 months before a nocturnal circadian rhythm and an addiction to daytime TV put paid to my third-level career.
Finn Rossiter. I remember you and that guy, Giblin.
This conversation needs to be interrupted, preferably by a gormless buffoon who wasn't even listening to the last sentence. You two went to secondary school together? Inquires the niece lord. Thank you, gormless buffoon.
Yeah, I'm Kate.
Dominic, nice to meet you. I'm doing a bit of research for my niece. She's going to be starting secondary school in September.
Oh, that's so cool that you have a niece. She'll have lots of options in the city. So how do you know Finn?
Terror. I may not have interacted with Kate much, but the idea of her knowing that I now frequent Loner Club has suddenly filled me with anxiety. There's no way out, unless I claim to be his cousin. Oh, we're in a social group. We do lots of stuff. Hiking, charades, paintballing, poetry slams. I could still claim that he's my idiosyncratic cousin and that I only go to Loner Club to support him. There's no time to concoct a lie.
Oh my god, that's so cool. I had to drag my workmates here kicking and screaming. I'd love to meet more people who go to things like this.
The MC has started tapping the mic. This serves as a cue for Kate to move in the direction of her seat. She departs with,
See you guys after the slam.
the event begins and I'm in a different universe, one in which two worlds, those of Felim's and Loner Club, have just collided. I don't recall holding a single conversation with Felim's alumni since I handed up my Leaving Cert chemistry exam. I bet Kate's still in contact with a load of my tormentors. They probably feel like they've won if they knew the extent of my social life. I can scarcely imagine anyone from our year ended up worse than me. At least the ones who became junkies probably have heroin circles. Right, I know what I have to do. It's a case of damage limitation. I need to be courteous to Kate, but to dampen her enthusiasm for Loner Club. It's imperative that she never steps foot in Farley's on a Tuesday. If I can put a spanner in the works, it won't have been a complete disaster of a day. Right, time to focus on poetry. No man is an island. Well, islands can be small, uninhabited, and incapable of supporting human life. In a sense, the Loner Club men are, in fact, islands. What else? I wandered lonely as a cloud, observing drearily from above, when all at once I saw a crowd. It was in fact a Loner Club. Right, let's hear some original poems.
The quaint mass of parchment permeates every crevice and fissure, while the prose awaits its summons.
I'm listening to a person recite a poem about a library. This is one of about 4 original poems we've heard over the course of almost 90 minutes. There's still no indication how much longer we have to sit here. At least football matches end at an agreed time, apart from those horrible occasions when they have to play extra time for some reason. I won't be able to take too many more of these banal anecdotes they use to flesh the event out. Not unless someone has a story about how to avoid a former classmate at a poetry slam. Kate wasn't the type to create a nickname for someone like me, but I recall a moment by the water fountain when she used that awful one those lads came up with. I'm not sure I can take her to The Hague for that. I suppose I should forget about it, even though I will never actually forget it. Okay, we're finally allowed to leave. I can safely say that poetry slams are not my cup of tea. Then again, nothing's my cup of tea. Not even tea. Don't get me started on coffee. I don't want to come across as overly enthusiastic to leave, but if we don't move soon, we're going to... Too late. Kate and her 2 work colleagues approach us.
What did you think of that, Finn?
I should probably answer with a single adjective. Perhaps grand. No, interesting. That's a nothing answer. Interesting,
It was amazing.
offers one of her colleagues.
That one about the ducks was one of the best poems I've ever heard.
Either she's had an epiphany or Kate was exaggerating about having to drag them there. I notice her hand approaching me.
Emer.
Finn.
Nice to meet you, Finn.
Another hand emerges and the same procedure is enacted, the name Roisin being substituted for the name Emer.
So how do you know Kate?
Inquires Emer. We were in school together,
Oh, so you can finally confirm whether or not Kate was a massive nerd at school.
adds Roisin. I don't think I gain anything by exposing Kate. I could pretend not to remember anything from secondary school. That's probably more normal than remembering every moment in minute detail and having them bouncing around in my mind on an almost daily basis. That'd be stretching my memory, I lie. What about Finn? What was he like at school? Asks the niece lord. I feel my body seizing up with fear. She could say anything now. Fictional, or worse yet, truthful.
That'd be stretching my memory.
Kate replies. I suspect she's also lying.
More importantly, these guys are in a social group.
She tells her colleagues, slightly hyperextending the definition of social there.
What kind of social group?
Asks Emer. A social retention pond for those who have ostracized themselves to the point of needing the company of people they actively dislike. I have a feeling the niece lord's answer won't express such sentiments, not verbatim anyway. It's a bit of everything. Poetry, yoga, hill walking, charades. If it's fun, we do it. Well, according to his definition, the only things in the world that are fun are watching football matches, drinking pints, and, well, unsuccessfully stalking people at poetry slams.
Is there an app?
Yeah, Emer has her phone ready.
What's it called?
OC. These initials are immediately typed into Emer's phone and she spends about 10 seconds looking for it.
I can't find it. All I can find for LC is the Leaving Cert and a language exchange site.
Yeah, that's it. Let's chat.
Oh, so it's a language exchange group.
I can feel the tension returning. Yeah, I await the moment that Emer will take a chainsaw to the house of cards, a moment that thankfully never arrives. She nods and accepts, with no further questions, that this group that was said to do virtually everything except language exchange is in fact a language exchange group. I'm guessing Emer is merely too polite to grill us.
Okay, so what's the plan for this week?
Asks Kate. We'll meet at Tuesday at 7:30 in Farley's and make a plan for the weekend, replies the niece lord. Indeed, Dominic. Hopefully that plan doesn't involve retrieving Mirela's corpse from the Shannon,
Cool. I'll be there.
says Kate.
Looking forward to meeting the rest of the gang.
The rest of the gang is currently MIA, so it'll probably be no more than her present company. Part of me wants to stay in tonight. However, I know Dominic and Luke, if he ever re-emerges, would have a field day with Kate in my absence. I need to be there to push back against conversation about Felim's. I'll pester Luke about the poetry slam, and will even feign interest in football if it means we're not talking about my school days. I'm the first one to arrive, and I don't even feel particularly bad about it. I will at the very least witness, if not push back on, every utterance tonight. Let's see who's first to show up. It's Dominic. I only have to put up with a 2-minute monologue about flat packs when Kate shows up. She seems more subdued than the enthusiastic Kate we saw at the end of the poetry slam. She wastes no time in probing about Loner Club lore.
I was looking at last year's photos in the app. You only uploaded photos from this pub.
I have no idea if that comment was sincere or pointed. I'll let Dominic sort it out. We don't photo everything we do, like the poetry slam. I imagine it's standard practice not to take selfies when actively stalking someone.
Right, but what was the last event before the poetry slam?
Movie night? That's patently not true.
And before that?
Secret Santa? That one is at least true. It was on the 21st of December. The shortest day of the year was, in many ways, the longest.
And before that?
Kate has us rumbled, but she's about to find out how stubborn and mendacious Dominic can be. Halloween fancy dress? At this point he's just reversing his way through the calendar. Before too long he'll be speaking of an imaginary St. Swithin's Day hill walk. It turns out there's no need as Kate ends her line of questioning, presumably in an act of clemency. That troublesome Farley's door screeches open, and who walks through? None other than Mr. Lone King himself. He takes a seat at our table, but, noticeably, doesn't introduce himself to Kate. There's tension in the air. We've had Kate pick apart Loner Club's sparse event schedule, and now there's a question that needs to be asked, but it's best to leave it for a while. Luke looks angry, and asking about Mirela will only serve to further agitate him. "Any chance of Mirela coming tonight?" asks the niece lord. "Fucking hell." "No," answers Luke. That could be no as in, no she's not interested, but it could also be no as in, no, she won't be seen until the next low tide. "That stupid bitch doesn't know what she wants." Oh God. Kate's going to think this is a misogynistic men's shed. Somehow he's made this desolate refuge of loneliness seem like something even worse. On the plus side, he said wants. His use of the present simple could be proof of life. "All she does is play with people's emotions." I thought his descent into love was quick. It turns out his descent into hatred is much faster and somehow even more pronounced. Kate looks shaken by Luke's commentary and tries to change the subject.
Anyone interested in the Battle of the Bands this weekend in the Shuffler?
Enthusiastic or otherwise, there is not a single word enunciated in response. "I'm disappointed because I thought Mirela was good company," says the niece lord. "You didn't get to know her. She's not a good person,"
The poetry slam was good fun, wasn't it?
says Kate with a forced smile. "You went to the poetry slam?" asks a seemingly affronted Lone King.
Yeah, that's where I met these two.
"You guys went to the poetry slam?" He sounds more than a little bit annoyed. "That was our thing." It's interesting how he can claim ownership of an event he didn't even go to. "You didn't miss much," offers the niece lord. Kate's face has given up on any pretense of being able to tolerate us. "Were ye following us?" "Well, no. If we'd been following them, we wouldn't have made it to the event. No, we just organised it ourselves. You didn't put anything in the group." "I don't have to put my plans in the group." Suddenly Kate's chair screeches as it quickly reverses. "Are you leaving?"
Yeah.
"Why? We've only been here a few minutes."
This isn't exactly the type of group I imagined it to be.
"You'll miss all the events."
You don't do anything. You didn't even reply when I proposed to go to the Battle of the Bands. I thought this was a group that did things. It's actually just a sad group of bitter men.
The truest characterization of Loner Club I've ever heard. "You don't fucking know us."
You're right, and I'm delighted to have the privilege of keeping it that way.
Kate storms off, and I make brief eye contact with the lads before following her. "Kate!" She turns around, looking like she wouldn't think twice about slapping me. I'm so sorry about them. They're normally not as bad as that. Kate reflects for a few seconds on my comment. Her anger seems to abate.
Are you in the Felim's Reunions WhatsApp group?
I had no idea such a group existed. No.
Do you want me to add you?
I'm sure she has good intentions, but there's no way I'm getting piled on in a WhatsApp group of people from Felim's. I'm slightly panicking here. I don't have WhatsApp, I say unconvincingly.
Oh, well, it was nice to see you again.
She sounds genuinely upset before turning and walking away. That might be the last time I ever see Kate Devereux. I feel as if I've won the game of school memories whack-a-mole.